All right, guys. How could we have a UFC Auckland preview show without the main event? After an impressive, dominating performance over Al Iaquinta at UFC 243, our next guest headlines UFC Auckland against Paul Felder this weekend. The future of New Zealand real estate, the future New Zealand real estate mogul himself, Dan the Hangman Hooker. Welcome back to Submission Radio. A very erotic Dan, shirt off in his kitchen slash living room. It seems. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, after that intro, I'm a little bit better. But no, it's good weather today. I'm outside in the garden, so I'll just stop coming here to chat to you fellas.
And it is the subtle art of seduction now with the show, the UFC Auckland happening this weekend. I mean, we have to speak to you about this because for a long time we've spoken about what it would be like for you to headline a show in Auckland, what it would be like for you to be the main event, and now we're just a week away from it happening. What's the experience been like, man? Are you noticing more and more people sort of stopping you on the street for a chat and a pic? And what's the reaction been like for you being the main man of the show coming this weekend?
Yeah, I definitely have it picked up this week. I think it's just a bit more, this is something I've been doing for a very long time, but I think just being at home, being the main event, it's like a lot. And then a lot of the people that I know and I interact with will be there on the night. So it's real to them. Usually they just, they see me training, they know I've got a fight coming up, and then I'll disappear and they see me on TV, and it's not as real to them as this fight, because they got their tickets, it's burning a hole in their hand, they can't wait for the show, and so they just kind of act weird around me. It's quite funny.
Dan Hooker main eventing in Spark Arena. This is almost like a dream of ours. I feel like we've been wanting it for so long. Does it feel the way you thought it would? I know we're sort of a week out at the moment, but I imagine there's almost a sense of like responsibility going around when you know that you're going to be main eventing the card.
Less like I view it as more of a showcase.
Mm-hmm.
People have been asking about the pressures of fighting at home, but I feel like to me it's just more like I'm excited. This is something I've been doing. I've dedicated my life to, so I'm excited to go out there and to showcase my ability to everyone I know. Like, this to me is an exciting prospect to showcase, and I just feel it's added to it, because a lot of those, I guarantee that if you're at the first UFC Auckland event or if you're at the last one, you know what to expect when I get out there, and the anticipation there, because both of those were the loudest crowd I've ever heard in my fight career.
Wow.
So I'm excited when I get out there and just to feel the energy and feel the noise of the crowd.
I mean, those cards were pretty epic, and you've had those great performances, but I mean, it's got to feel pretty special, not only being the main event, but CKB, your team, really bringing this card to Auckland, forcing the UFC's hand, and showcasing and displaying talent. Obviously, Eternal MMA as well the night before. Does it feel a little bit more special knowing that a big part of this card coming down is due to your success, due to your team's success, and due to what CKB's been doing over the last few years?
Yeah, like the momentum's just continued to build. We haven't stopped to reflect. We haven't hit the pause button once. Even when the boys win the world titles, you think we'd sit back and hit the pause button for a bit and have a rest, but it just hasn't happened. We can keep the momentum going, and it's just growing and building, and it's just getting more and more. I think there's 6 or 7 CKB fighters on the Eternal card, and then 3 on the UFC. So it'll be a busy weekend, but the gym has just been full of energy, man. Training camp's been so easy to get energized, and there's so many guys just bouncing off each other, because we all have fights and we're all going through the same thing. So we're just feeding off each other.
And now that you're in the main event, we remember you had your wallet stolen about a year and a half ago, and you put out an olive branch. You told the guy that you've invited him to your gym, the Combat Academy, for some free training to teach them some discipline. I imagine now that you're all over the town, all over the place, Give us the update. Is the wallet back? Did the man reach out? Did he take that olive branch? Has he come into the gym? What is the update on that?
No, I haven't heard. No one's come forward. So we've you just got to let these things go, I think.
Well, I feel like you rock up to check in for fight night, and they're like, Dan Hooker's already checked in. The guy with the Dan Hooker wallet is in the back. I feel like this guy's building to something, and during fight night, he's going to be in the locker room in your fight kit, possibly stealing your Reebok shoes. I think that's the plan.
Potentially, that might just happen.
Yeah, or maybe you're walking out and then someone throws a wallet in your hand. And you hear someone yell, like, "It was all a mistake. I'm sorry." And then you're like, "All right, sweet." And then you meet Paul Felder. Here's the thing, right? This fight, so many people are excited about it, but it feels like that stare down that you and Paul had back in December really got international fans pumped for it. It was a pretty epic stare down. I'm just wondering if you took anything away from that stare down when you looked into Paul's eyes, and why was it so intense?
You're going to take away from a stare down what you want to take away from it. So you can't, it was so far away. I just needed to let him know what this means to me and let him know that my intentions coming into the fight. So I needed him to go away and to train the hardest he's ever trained in his life. If we're all friends and shaking hands and, I need this to be what the fans want it to be. I need this to be an exciting contest. I need him to be in there for 25 minutes and to give me the best fight of his entire career, because it's what my fans deserve. It's what my hometown deserves. I'm not dragging a snooze fest down here. I'm coming to put on a show.
There was a pretty hilarious moment during the stare down where the UFC PR was trying to get you guys to turn back around for photos. You just heard UFC PR go, "All right, guys, turn around. All right, guys, face this way. All right, guys, turn around." I'm just wondering, what goes through your mind? You're in this, sort of epic stare down. You're trying to show Paul, all right, this is going to be serious. I hope you come in at 100%. But at the same time, you're like, oh man, this UFC team might have a nervous breakdown if I don't break this eye contact and turn around for the photographer to actually promote the fight. What was going through your mind at that point? And were you happy? Were you happy with the way that it played out?
No, I didn't. It's not like I had any real intentions going, I'm gonna stare at him for this amount of time, and
because it didn't look like Paul was going to stop. If you didn't initiate that turnaround, you might still be out the front of Spark Arena right now doing a stare down.
I feel like I got my point across. I feel like it's mission accomplished. He knows now. Let's get this over with, or else he's gonna have to buy me a drink.
Well, I know that we saw you spoke about how this fight is personal to you, and part of it is because of some of the memes Felder put up insulting your family name. For those who may not understand, I found it interesting the way you sort of broke it down. Why was that so personal?
Well, it's just something, I don't know. It's just something that you just don't do. You can't insult a man's family name and then expect him to take that as some kind of joke or that's like a friendly banter. It's just a line. Like, as people are thinking, oh, you're upset about it. You're this. Oh, he's under your skin. No, it's more of it's just reactionary response. Like, it's not an emotional response. I'm not like upset or anything like that. He's crossed the line. Like, we're it's an incredibly violent sport, but we're gentlemen at the same time. He's crossed that line of respect. So then I'll reciprocate, and a lot of the gentlemanly things, like a handshake before the fight, is off the table. But regardless, whatever we have will be sorted out on fight night, Once we lay our hands on each other, that is all I need to kind of rectify that. It's not like you're going to knock him out and then still be upset. Like, that will be sorted on fight night.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you spoke about is you took it as an insult to your family lineage, not just sort of a joke. When you say it's going to be like handshakes are off, does that mean no touch of gloves at the start of the fight and no shaking hands at stare downs? How much is this going to differ for the fight week?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. Where he can keep his space, I'll keep my space. But yeah, as far as anything like that goes, it's definitely off the table.
I mean, we were talking to a bunch of people about, how the effects of personal comments affect fighters during fight week. I mean, I imagine you'd be as motivated as ever because of the stakes of this fight, what it means for your career, what it means to be in the main event of the Auckland show. But when you go back to training after seeing that online, does it add that extra 2%, 3% to the training room? Does it give a Super Saiyan Dan into that CKB room even more motivated to get the most out of the training sessions leading into the fight?
I didn't think it would, but it definitely helps. When you're feeling beat up and you're feeling down and you're feeling kind of worn out, you'll see something and it'll just kind of light a spark and give you a bit more motivation. But that can be the same of you see like a highlight for the fight or a promo for the fight, and it's got him knocking a bunch of guys out, me knocking a bunch of guys out. Like it gives you that spark. So the motivation is always there, but it kind of just reignites it and gets it all going again. So yeah, I can't say that I've discouraged it. Like I enjoy conflict. I enjoy it. That's where I feel very comfortable. So if someone wants to take it there, they want to take it to a hostile environment. That's a place I feel very comfortable.
I can tell you're motivated because when you put your arm up, you can see the veins popping out of your biceps. So there's no denying that you're motivated. Is this a personal fight for you, Dan? I don't think we've ever seen you in a personal fight, really. Is this one that you consider personal, you and Paul?
I feel like that's the most insulting I've ever had an opponent in my career. Now I've been like trash talked in the past and like had opponents yelling in my face that I'm rubbish on the ground and I'm an average fighter and they're gonna knock me out and they're gonna retire me and they're gonna break this and they're gonna break that. But that always felt like it was from like a place of weakness. I could see right through it, and I could see that it was just a facade, and I could see that it was coming from a place of fear. So then you don't feed that. If someone's attacking you and it's more like based on fear aggression, that's then responding to that is gonna give them what they want. So for those fights when I had that, and I felt it, and I felt it was fake, and I felt it was fear. You don't need to feed that, and you can just ignore it. And I know what it is. I know it's just weakness. But this is different in that he is a man of respect, generally, and he's insulted me this way for whatever reasons he has. I feel like potentially, he said to reporters that it's because he's in a main event and maybe he feels the pressure of a main event and he feels like he needs to sell the fight and show that he's marketable. But this fight sold out already, this fight regardless, because Dan Hooker headlining in Auckland, it could have got, any other exciting fighter. It could have been Donald Cerrone. It could have been Justin Gaethje. It could have been any of these other guys. And this thing would have sold out. So I don't feel like it needed that. But if he wants to take it there, and I know the fans enjoy that. I know the fans enjoy conflict. So it's I'm happy. It adds some intrigue to the fight.
It's crazy because you're gonna have all these friends, family, CKB team members there. What did you think when Paul said that he wanted to basically knock you out in front of all your friends and family?
That's whatever. That's obviously his intention. Like that's his opinion. That's fact. I intend to completely dismantle him in front of my friends and family, and boot him back to the States, full of stitches. That's my intention. So that on the same hand is what we signed up for. If that happens to me, then so be it. You know, my friends and family aren't made of jelly beans. They see me go through some things. They know I'm gonna pick myself back up, and that it's not the end of the world. But yeah, that there is professional. So that will never elicit any kind of response.
Let's talk about the fight for a sec, because you'll be enjoying some reach and a bit of a height advantage in this one. But how do you see yourself matching up to Paul? I mean, he's a very capable striker. He's pretty well-rounded, and we've known him for some of the battles that he's been in. How do you feel you match up with him striking-wise in this fight?
Yeah, there's really only one way to find out. You know, I think I'm the more versatile of the two of us. I feel like I have more options than he does, and a few more tools. But you really don't know until you get out there.
I'm wondering, like, how do you see this fight with Paul as far as your career? I know Paul sort of described it as a do or die moment. What do you think a win against Paul does for you? Because I feel like a lot of people get the sense this kind of unlocks, you know, a lot of big matchups for you, you know, with a win here.
I feel like that's the biggest difference between me and Paul coming into this fight is that he is looking at it as a do or die. You know, he wins, he's gonna move like it's kind of his last hurrah, his last run. And if he loses, then he's going to go and turn to some other things. But for me, this is all I know. This is all I want to do. This is, regardless of success or failure, I have a plan to move forward. You know, the belt is the ultimate goal. But regardless of success or failure, like I will continue to move forward towards that goal. So I think that's what differentiates us the most coming into this fight.
I mean, you mentioned the plan, and of course, you're not looking past this battle with Paul that's going to be going down this weekend at UFC Auckland, but you've got guys like Dustin Poirier, you've got guys like Justin Gaethje who are above you, who don't have a fight locked in at the moment, and you've got the division being held up because Khabib will be fighting Tony Ferguson and then most likely Conor McGregor. So those two guys should be around in the foreseeable future for you to potentially fight. Does the plan include, after beating Paul Felder, possibly recalling out a guy like Dustin Poirier or focusing your sights on Justin Gaethje? Because in all sense and logic, those guys would have to fight sometime soon, right?
Yeah, coming into the top 5 with a 3-fight win streak is a very powerful thing that puts you in a very strong position. So I think those options are the only ones that make sense after this fight.
I'm just wondering, let's say, you know, people talk about seasons and sort of like long-term plans. And again, we're not looking past Paul this weekend, but who do you think sort of ends up being the champion in your division by the end of the year? You got Khabib and Tony fighting, you got maybe Conor fighting, you know, the winner of those guys. Who do you think ends up being the champion by the end of the year?
Hey, if I had a mystic ball like that, I'd be a millionaire. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be out here fist fighting for a living. So it's hard to tell. You know, that Tony Khabib fight, I think, is a true coin flip. I think that's an incredible matchup of styles. And yeah, I would like to see. I think Conor's going to get the next shot. And yeah, a lot of people hate on him, and they think he's holding up the division. But I think he's very good for the division, and he adds a great deal of intrigue, you know, for the mainstream audience to be attracted to this division. I think it's important that his name kind of sticks around it.
I mean, it's a funny effect because for the guys that are waiting for title shots, you know, guys like Justin Gaethje and stuff, it's kind of a bit of a bummer. But for yourself, do you feel like Conor McGregor holding up the division, getting this title shot, is kind of maybe even better for yourself because it opens up more opportunities for you to fight these guys like Dustin and Justin who are trying to wait for these potential big title opportunities or fights with Conor McGregor and can't really do anything for a long period of time.
Yeah, well, as long as there's clarity, now that Tony and Khabib is matched, that's clarity in the division. And Dana White says, okay, Conor's getting the next shot at the title. That's guaranteed. That's clarity for the division. I think it's the problems arise in the guys that are just outside of that that position. Is that like me trying to get an opponent for this UFC Auckland card? There was a lot of guys sitting on the fence because they potentially, even Felder, he potentially was gunning for the Conor McGregor fight. So he was, rather than jumping on this fight, he would sit back and he would wait to see if Conor chose him to be that opponent that he ended up picking Cowboy for that matchup. So, when the waters are murky, I think it's difficult to get a matchup. Like it was Justin Gaethje said that he was offered this fight. He was offered the main event in UFC Auckland, which would have been an incredible show for the fans. But he turned it down because he was waiting for the Conor McGregor fight, which he didn't get. So he's just sat out and missed the boat and missed the opportunity. So if the UFC would have said, look, you're not getting a fight, Cowboys getting a fight, then potentially we'd see a Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker main event this weekend.
I'll tell you what, that is a fight. I mean, people see the dog has started barking. The Submission Radio news dog Winston just started barking because it's such an exciting fight. I think in a lot of ways, Paul Felder and then Justin Gaethje, those could be two epic fights for you back to back. Just quickly on Dustin Poirier, I know you mentioned him in Melbourne. He's trying to chase up this fight with Nate Diaz. Just quickly, your reaction to Dustin really wanting to fight Nate Diaz out of everybody in the division right now?
I can see it. Look, everyone's just got to do what's best for them and what's best for their career. Fighting Dan Hooker is not what's best for Dustin Poirier's career, trust me. Fighting Nate Diaz, I can see it. It's a very winnable fight for him and someone I think he picks apart fairly easily. And then, the Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor correction, he gets a win over Nate, then that Conor fight's like a little closer for Poirier. So I can understand it and I can see, Nate's a huge name in the mainstream audience because of the win over Conor. And it's a huge name for not, and I'm going to catch a lot of shit, not the most difficult fight stylistically.
Well, out of the guys in the division, like when you look at potential guys that you could be fighting, guys like Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, do you see Nate Diaz as kind of the easiest matchup for you?
For me specifically, I think that fight is very straightforward. And a lot of other guys in the division, I think that fight is a pretty straightforward matchup.
I was wondering, because when you said that fighting you for Dustin isn't best for his career, you mean like from a sense of name value or just mean like stylistically?
I think both. I think I'm a difficult fight for him. I think it's a dangerous matchup. I think he needs to get back in the win column, and I don't feel like I'm the right guy for that.
It'll be funny though, because if you do win here and you mention him in your post-fight speech, and he knocks the fight back again, but yet he doesn't fight anybody else, what kind of message do you think that sends about him?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the fans react to that because they don't like guys sitting out. They don't like guys sitting out. They don't like guys turning down fights without giving a valid reason. His reason last time was he wanted the Conor fight, or he wanted he was sitting out waiting for something else. Like you're gonna run out of excuses pretty quick. I don't know, man. That Gaethje fight's like ringing a bell. At Gaethje, Poirier, Gaethje, one of them's gets me a little more excited.
The dog loves it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. We've got a focus group over here made of pooches, and they love that Justin Gaethje fight. It's a love triangle, but it's a fight triangle. Quickly, as we wrap up, Dan, and we appreciate your time during this fight week, a lot of people talking about this Paul Felder fight as a 5-round war. And I imagine you're preparing for the best Paul Felder there is, like you mentioned earlier in this interview. But in your mind, do you see this fight finishing a lot quicker than people realize?
I think it'll appear competitive for a good stretch of time, but then I think as he starts to break down, I think it will be pretty clear who's controlling the matchup.
And assuming all goes well there, you get your hand raised. I know you're no stranger to fighting in New Zealand, and you've won in New Zealand multiple times. But when you look at the year or the last few years that CKB have had, when you look at the run that you've had, when you look at when you're in where you are in your career and what you're sort of knocking on the door for here, where will this moment rank for you? Assuming you get the win here against Paul Felder.
The biggest, the best. That will be. I never even thought I would be in the UFC, because at the time when I first started watching, there was no one from New Zealand, even in the UFC. Guys like Jamie Tahuna and Dylan Andrews, Mark Hunt, they weren't even in the UFC when I was fighting professionally. Then to see those guys, the first wave, get their opportunity, and then to be the first New Zealand-based fighter to be signed to the UFC, now to come back and be able to carry their show, be able to headline it, to get the win here, it will mean the world to me.
Mm-hmm. We keep going back to this moment, but that one Melbourne show where you had to do your own open workout at Fed Square, and now headlining the show in Auckland, and people are stopping you on the street, and of course the whole thing being around you and Paul and your team at CKB. It's a pretty awesome sort of journey in the way that it turned out. But guys, don't miss the Dan Hooker after party as well in Auckland. You can check it out at the Brit. The fights start early, so the party pumps early all Sunday and Monday, I'm guessing. And for those who haven't followed Dan on Twitter, make sure to follow him at Dan the Hangman, or at Insta Dan Hangman. That after party, by the way, hosted by Shane Young.
Hosted by Shane Young.
Dan Hooker, and I know you guys will, Brad Riddell, and I know you guys are going to be trying to keep Israel Adesanya out of the venue as well. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to check out.
Hey, on the poster, Shane Young shirtless. So I expect Shane Young to be shirtless at the event, or you can demand your money back.
Yeah, as advertised.
Money back, you get your money back as advertised. Either Shane Young is topless all night at the party, or you can all have your money back.
He'll be like Terry Crews from White Chicks.
Magic Shane, as he's known in the strip club circuits around the area. Of course, we have to mention Dan's gym, the Combat Academy. You can follow all their updates on Instagram at the Combat Academy NZ, or visit combat-academy.co.nz for more information. One of the finest gyms in the area. I know a lot of people are coming down there just to experience some of this. Dan Hooker classes, a fine facility. Dan, we wish you all the best this weekend at UFC Auckland. We really, really, really appreciate your time. And, man, coming from a big win in a stadium show to Melbourne to now headlining a show in Auckland, it looks like the decade is kicking off in the fine way for one Dan Hooker. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Stats.
Thanks, Dan.